Turn up the volume. Turn up the flavour. Wings, beers and sporting glory. Only at Winghouse. Welcome to Saturday League Kickoff.
What about your Saturday spotlight?
Mine, it's also a winger. I was
two wingers. I can't believe we're focusing on wingers. Shout out to you, Matt Rogers.
Exactly. Christian Tuipulotu. I know I was critical of him about the cash money celebrations a few weeks ago. I don't think it really works when you're down 18 points, but to see him scoring tries and then celebrating and then pulling out the cash money, not just for himself but for others. It was a nice moment last night as the Dragons put the Titans to the sword, and as a lifelong Dragons fan / sufferer, it was great to see.
Now I want to ask Shane Flanagan that when he put a stop to the try celebrations, was it only when you're losing, or is it when you're winning? It's okay.
Well, I'm looking forward to that's what he said, and he made that remark in the post-match presser afterwards. And we're going, as I said earlier, we've got Flano on the show, so I'm looking forward to asking Flano about it. But it was a great win for the Dragons. You know, they were on a bit of a. They came on a bit of a downer after the Storm win 2 weeks ago, and then to see them produce what they did against the Titans was good to see.
Yeah, you know what? I know that at 18 down, that it's not ideal to be celebrating.
It's just not a good. I don't know. When you're a fan, I don't think that's the look.
But we've got different kids playing these days.
I get it.
It's what motivates them, what gets them on the front foot and makes them more confident. And then he went and scored another 2 after that as well.
Well, when he scored his first try, he didn't. He was like, yeah. Yes, that's exactly how he looked.
What would Andrew Webster's try celebration be?
I just shake hands.
Oh, the old Rooster style.
Yeah, I'm very.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to,
I didn't score many. Any.
If you want to get involved in the show, you can do so whether you're watching us via Fox League or listening to us through the SEN network. The text line is 0457 736 736. But we also want to take your calls as well. 1300 01 1170. The numbers will be on the screen. When talking about Jacob Kiraz, and we've got a couple of texts here already, when you say on form, I'm talking about the form team. If you're a team in form like the Bulldogs are, a lot of the time your selectors will be talking about your players at the selection table, if that makes sense.
I'm just trying to think who else they look at.
On the wing? Well, the Fox. Will he always come into contention? I mean,
I don't know.
I think there's a lot more that probably in front of him at the moment. So, yeah. Hey, let's get into the game from last night, the big talking point coming from that game, which was the Roosters win over the Brisbane Broncos. Now, an outstanding win for the Roosters, 26 points to 16. A second juggernaut over the weekend taken down behind the Panthers as well. This was at Suncorp Stadium. It was a bit of a brutal battle at times, but the big talking point coming from that game, which has really unfortunately taken the focus off that great win by the Roosters, is what's happening with Spencer Leniu. His confrontation with Jonathan Thurston, who was working with the broadcasters, Channel 9, on the sideline last night. Now it is captured a lot of the headlines this morning, Webby. What have you learnt early this morning about what has happened last night?
Look, it's disappointing, one, to be talking about it, given that it was such an incredible game and such an incredible performance from the Roosters, but it involves two pretty high-profile players, stemming from the incident, obviously, with Ezra Mann and Spencer Leniu in Las Vegas last year. I thought it was interesting that Kevin Walters actually talked about, because we saw the shot that Spencer put on Tony Staggs in the first half, and Kevin Walters, the former Broncos coach, made reference to it at halftime for Fox Sports, that there's still there's no love lost there because of what happened in Vegas. And then it certainly boiled over later in the game. So it depends on who you talk to, Sats. Whenever you try to get to the bottom of these stories, the Roosters will say that it was unprompted. The Roosters will say that the JT had approached Spencer, and that's why it fired up as it did. I've spoken to people at Channel 9 who were there and said that's not the case at all. It was Spencer had some choice words to say to JT, who was on the sideline.
So was this
for Channel 9?
Is this reportedly during the game?
As he was coming off the field.
So as he's being replaced?
Yes. As he was coming off the field.
So the accusation is that JT's sitting there, usually next to Danica Mason on the sideline, or it might be Marley Silver last night.
It wasn't Danica wasn't there last night.
So if he's sitting on the sideline, Spencer's coming off, obviously caught eyes with JT, or he may not have caught eyes. And the allegations are that he said something in that moment.
Yeah. He sprayed him with some choice words. What exactly was said is a point of debate. Then afterwards, and this is how it's been explained to me, is that the JT went to approach Spencer. They had more words out on the field, but then the conversation, according to people from the Roosters, in the tunnel afterwards was far more civil, and that is where Spencer Leniu made it very clear why he is so upset with Jonathan Thurston. So after the incident last year in Vegas, JT, as a proud Indigenous man, said that he thought the 8 weeks wasn't enough, that the NRL had failed in their deliberations, and said that it should have been 12 weeks. On a podcast a week out from the finals last year, he repeated those comments on the Marley and Me podcast, which is a Channel 9 podcast, and that's what Spencer had taken umbrage to, and that's why he was so aggressive as he was. Spencer Leniu has posted something on his own Instagram today saying that's it wasn't that's the reason why he went forward to Jonathan Thurston, that he was unhappy with. He was unhappy that he thought everything was okay between them when it clearly wasn't. I don't know. I don't know whether the NRL are going to look at it. I've spoken to Andrew Abdo this morning as well. He said unless there's a complaint from either Channel 9 or Jonathan Thurston, there's not much they can do. I'm not sure if that's good enough from the NRL, because it's something that happened during a game, involving the broadcaster. At the very least, I think they should want to get to the bottom of what happened. But again, it's just the lingering effects of what happened in Vegas last year.
If Spencer Leniu did take it upon himself during the game while being replaced to say something to Jonathan Thurston as he's walking past back to the bench, it's more of a concern for Trent Robinson that he's losing his focus and worrying about something else. If something has happened directly after full time, where the JT has approached him to say what's going on, it's probably not the right time, because he's an adrenaline-charged player. And he thrives on adrenaline. That's the way that he plays. If it's happened probably 10, 15 minutes after full-time in the tunnel while Trent Robinson is present, that's when it is going to be more civil, like you said, because he's got his mentor there, and obviously he's not going to say some choice words in front of him. Dino from the Gong on the text line says, "Good morning, Sats and Webby. Love the Saturday morning show. Thank you very much. Serious lads, Spencer Leniu needs to pull his head in and stop acting like a galah if the reports are true." Some may say that. We're going to learn a little bit more very, very soon. Now, Trent Robinson in the game post-match. This is what he had to say when questioned by Fox League's Jake Duke.
Is the sideline the right place to do it, Rob, or is it probably should have been a conversation maybe somewhere else if Spencer's got that problem?
I don't know why Spencer, he didn't go and approach anybody, so I don't know why you're trying to put it on Spence here.
That's just the
I know you
JT
guys, but you guys are trying to put it on Spencer here. This is the way that the questions are coming. You guys just got to be careful with the way that you guys are asking questions as well.
So that's probably a Trent Robinson who would have had a debrief directly after the game, because it is a serious incident. And some may think it's not a serious incident, but it is, because it's against someone that represents the broadcasters first and foremost, and it is during the game, like you said. So it does need to be dealt with in some way. It doesn't need to be a suspension, but it needs to be a discussion at least. And that's a Trent Robinson directly after the game. Probably hasn't understood the probably entirety of the incident and what role JT plays in this. Not quite sure.
Well, I don't know how much the Roosters are aware of what happened there on the sideline when Spencer was coming off. Look, to be honest, I'm not that fussed, but it's definitely an important talking point that warrants discussion, because it comes out of that huge incident that happened in Las Vegas last year. I've actually got to know Spencer a little bit on a promotional trip to Vegas in December before those opening matches in Vegas last season. And I found him to be an absolute champion kid. I did. I covered the judiciary hearing, and I've still got no doubt that Spencer Leniu had no idea that what he had said to Ezra Mam was racist. I believe that. That does not make the use of the word right.
Yep.
But this is in no defence of Spencer. I got no skin on either side of this, but Spencer did try to go up to Brisbane and want to, or fly Ezra down, or try to talk to them and try to talk to the Broncos and apologise about it. I just think he's obviously, the way that he's gone after Jonathan Thurston, it probably could have been handled better. But as I said, I know this. Jonathan Thurston is rattled. That is the word that was used by one of his 9 colleagues to me earlier today. And I know his 9 colleagues are very unhappy with what happened there on the sideline at last night's game. But if you talk to the Roosters, they say that it's just a disagreement between 2 grown men. So where the truth is, we'll probably never know.
There was testosterone flying everywhere.
It happens.
We know that. Yeah, so let's get to that game. It was a great win by the Roosters. I thought Hugo Savala was outstanding. I thought his control was really good in the game. James Tedesco, again, what he had, 220 metres, 6 tackle breaks, just involved in everything. Definitely, by the time he's retired, he's been talking about one of the great fullbacks of all time. One interesting statistic I've always kept an eye on when it comes to Payne Haas. If you can keep him under a certain amount of metres in a game, you're usually really you're in the frame of winning the game or putting the Broncos to the sword. They kept him to about 130, 140 metres last night. By half-time, he only had 55 metres. That's unheard of when it comes to Payne Haas. So I've got no doubt that was a main focus of the the Roosters, I should say, leading into this game, to contain him first and then worry about everyone else. And it played out beautifully for the Roosters.
It did. I thought great game from Billy Smith.
Yeah.
It's
just a great story,
Well,
isn't
it had shades of Steve Gearin.
What about the size of him?
I know, he's big, but the way that he latched onto the first the kick for the first try, and then to get down and get the ball down from the Tedesco grubber for the second, and then got put on report and sent to the sin bin.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I thought he was harshly done by there.
Yeah, there was a lot to come out of that game. Interesting to see what the judiciary charge sheet looks like when it drops within the next hour. I'd say we'll keep you up to date about what's doing there.
Billy Smith, 2 tries. Quick play the ball for Angus Crichton's try as well when Connor Watson got our dummy half. Connor Watson was amazing, just terrorised
career best form,
the opposition.
Killing it.
Origin number 14. I think he probably holds that position again. And I know it's pretty easy to say when it's on the back of a win and it's 24 hours later. Everyone's excited about the win and individual players. But he's always playing that role where he doesn't actually really have a number on his back, does he? He could play pretty much anywhere, and he terrorised them last night. I've got to say, Reece Walsh, without being outstanding, I'm liking how controlled he is.
I can't believe he's getting criticism for not being his flashy best.
Well,
you know what I mean? I don't think he could, some say that he overplays his hand too much, and then when he's playing a control game like he is, he's been apparently too quiet. So I feel sorry for Walsh in some respects.
Nafahu White, outstanding in the forward pack as well. Do you think Angus Crichton's got something to answer for that, the forearm, while in possession of the ball?
It was a weird one, wasn't it?
So they always say it's okay if you run and the arm is vertical.
But it's almost like he sort of...
But when it's
use it as a
parallel
weapon
to the ground, it's... Let's say Tino. The argument is Tino does it. But Tino sort of does it as a bump-off pushing motion. It's going to be interesting. My argument always is, if the ball carrier has the ability to put his forearm towards your throat, you shouldn't be up there. Bend your back. Get underneath the ball.
Don't hit me in the throat.
Tackle properly.
I tell you what, poor old Adam Reynolds looked like he'd swallowed a fly in the middle of Suncorp.
Broncos
a fur ball or something, but it was very... it wasn't pretty.
864 says, morning Sats and Webby, love the kickoff. I thought Hugo was great last night. Izzy Chook's number 7 till Walker's fit, absolutely, while they're winning. Broncos attack very sideways, boys. So they need Ezra Mann back ASAP. 158 says, well, he's back in round 9, I think he is. We had Kevy Walters on throughout the week, myself and Matty Rogers for Sports Day. He said he'd rush Ezra in straight away. I think he'll spend some time in Queensland Cup. Yeah, without a doubt. And, of course, the Gold Coast Titans, well, they were beaten comfortably by the Dragons, 38 points to 16, and we are going to get to the Dragons coach, Shane Flanagan, up next. This is Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler and also Andrew Webster, back with more. Welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. Shane Flanagan, the Dragons coach. We're going to get him on the line very, very soon. He just dropped out. But while we do that, let's get to some of your text messages. And there's a lot of texts here that about the Spencer Leniu situation, Friday Night Rugby League. Seriously, I can't believe this is even a discussion. 669 says, JT has had his say on TV, tore Spencer to bits, even after he apologised. Good on Spence for giving him a mouthful if he did. Yeah, there'll be some that will think that, but there's probably on the back of this, there's also, what would the NRL do if Leniu said this to a member of the public during the game? He'd cop a suspension, he'd offer an apology, and as for Trent Robinson, naturally he's going to stand by his player. Absolutely, he'll stand by his player. He'll never throw his player under the bus. We know that. But also, the NRL, they probably need to look at it. If they're not seen to be looking at it at all, Webby, that's probably more of a concern.
Yeah, look, as I said, it's only early days, and as Andrew Abdo explained to me this morning, it was they're just, it's early days. They're waiting to hear if there's a complaint from Jonathan Thurston or Channel 9. To be honest, given how upset some of his colleagues were about what happened, again, I'm not saying whether that's right or not or justified or not, but I'd be surprised if Channel 9, as the broadcaster, didn't say something to the NRL about it.
Yep. Okay. And Sats and Webby, I can't tell you how satisfying it was to walk out of Suncorp Stadium, a winner amongst 40,000 Broncos fans. One of the best live wins I've seen from the Roosters. Cam said, one of the loyal listeners on SEN.
Was that Nick Politis?
Each and every night. Well, the Dragons are 3 from 5. Comfortable win over the Gold Coast Titans in Wollongong last night. 38 points to 16, like we said. And as first grade coaches, they're always chirpy the morning after a win, aren't they? So we thought we'd take advantage of that and get Shane Flanagan on Saturday league kickoff on a Saturday morning. How are you, Flano?
G'day, Sats, Webby. Yep, you're right there. Very happy.
So overall, how happy are you that it did play out the way that it did last night?
Yeah, I thought we were really good, clinical on sometimes, when we got down into their end and, executed our plays really well and, scored some nice tries. I probably think we could have scored maybe one more and probably saved one, but, it's never, footy's never perfect, but I was really happy to get away with a good win.
Flanagan, congratulations on the victory. Christian Tuipulotu, I know you've been asked about this in the post-match press conference. He just couldn't help himself in the end. He got the cash money out. You're okay with it?
He could. When we win footy games and he's scoring tries, I'm happy with it. But not when you're down 18 points or something like that and he's showing me the money. He's earned himself a new contract, so I thought he might show me the money away, but he brought it back out again last night.
Just seriously though, he's a quality winger. God, he's a chunky winger too.
Yeah, he is. He can finish, and he's really good at the back end of the field. He's powerful, and he gets in there and does a heap of work for us, on our start of our set. So he's had a really good start of the year. Unfortunately, he's just got a bit of a hamstring strain, which we hope is not too bad. Might be only a week or two, and he'll be back out there.
Nice. Now, Lockie Illis, at times this year, Flano, he's answered the call when questioned, and he's not even 60 games in his career yet. So as a coach, when you're working and trying to develop a half as quick as possible, is it more trial and error, or do you work more with him psychologically, what he's thinking about at various parts of the game?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, mate. He was out for a fair while. Obviously, missed a whole year of footy last year, and he's come back from a pretty nasty injury. He's moving well. That's no concern now. Though the injury's, well and truly in the back of his mind. But it's a tricky one, halves. Are they natural, ball players, or are they natural organisers? What's their strength? And with Lockie, his strength is, just kicking into corners defensively. If he makes his tackles and kicks well, and then just a little bit of organisational skills comes out in him. That's all we're asking early on, and he's done that at different stages. For a beautiful pass for Dill Egan to score last night. So he's showing glimpses along the way. We're just probably got to get. At the moment, there's probably 70% of it. His game's on song. We've just got to get that last little bit out of him.
Flano, your attack really got rolling when Leilua came on and started to form that combination with Val Holmes there on the left. Is that a combination we can expect more of as the season goes on?
Yeah, Webby, it's a tricky one because young Dill Egan can play on both edges. He can play left or right and play in the middle, and he's an emerging talent. But Luch comes on, and he's got that ball playing ability, and he's got a bit of a combination there with Val from North Queensland Cowboys. They played together a fair bit, so we're trying to find the right mix at the moment with Luch coming on. Like, he's probably not an 80-minute back rower at the moment, but Dill Egan's coming on. If we get that right, I think Luch can be so dangerous when he comes on if he doesn't have to play 80.
Tell us about Egan. He's almost developed cult status at the Dragons in a handful of games. I thought against the Storm at the end there, he was fantastic. You didn't look so good though in that Storm game. I've got to say, Flano, the last 20 minutes on the sideline, you looked like you were doing it a bit tough.
Yeah, it was remind me of 2016. I just couldn't sit down, and I know what the Storm were like. When you got Pappenhausen and Munster in your team, Harry Grant, you can be leading, and then all of a sudden it just gets taken away from you. So I wasn't real comfortable sitting on the sideline, and but. Yeah, to answer your question about Dylan Egan, he's a great young man. He loves his footy, obviously from Gerringong. He knows his football as well, and he's not the biggest man, he's not the fastest, but he's just committed to everything he does, and his footy smarts get him around the park really well, so that's an advantage he's got. As I said, he's probably a halfback in a back rower's body. As I said, really, really, really smart footy intelligence, and just the start of a long, long career.
And a good combination too between both he and Val Holmes. That's why you signed Val. One, because you know what he can do as a former coach and player when you won a comp, but also two is that he's a strike centre. And when Luciano and Val was asked actually at half time, do you work on that? Did that early pass from Luciano to Val, and just let him use his footwork, because that's his trademark, that left foot step, hasn't it, Flano, over his career? And it was sort of like a bit of a turn back time last night for Val.
Yeah, I was really pleased with Val's game, because he came into the game and he carried out of our end really strong. He wanted to get involved, wanted to do that hard stuff. It's not always the fancy stuff for Val. Like, he can carry the ball at the back end of the field because he's a powerful runner, and he has got silky hands and silky touch. And you throw that in with Luciano Leilua's silky hands and touch. Well, you got two players that can ball play and run and have got good footwork. So it's a bit of a dangerous edge for us. But we just got to get the ball to him more often in good field position, which we did last night.
And Flano, Terrell Sloan looks like he's actually enjoying his football, being on the wing and not having to deal with the pressure of fullback. Those bigger positions will come.
He looked
later
like he played
career.
a little bit more physical last night.
Yeah. He looks but he looks happier. Is that fair comment?
Yeah, it is. You hit the nail right in the head, mate. The pressure of playing fullback and organising your defensive line, being on plays offensively. The responsibility of the fullback is, it's one of the biggest jobs on the field. And I agree with you. Just taking that away from him a little bit is, made him be a little bit more relaxed and just go to his game and just do his. It's not a big list of jobs that he's got to do, but just get his job done. And I think you're exactly right, mate. He just showed last night that he's probably a little bit more happier at the moment with less responsibility.
Flano, as a coach, are you starting to see a bit of an evolution in some of the positions? Because years ago that we saw the front rows and back rows needed to be sort of like 6'3", 6'4". Now we're starting to see the Dylan Egan type sort of front rows where they're a little bit more shorter to the ground, a little bit more mobile. Then your fullbacks, which were big bodies as well, are starting to go the opposite direction as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You don't need that. It'd be nice to have, that we're probably missing just one big bowling ball type of forward that could just carry and is hard to get to the ground. But, we've got some real athletes. The two Couchmans could probably play 80 minutes. Dill Egan showed last night he can play big minutes in the middle or on the edge. And they're not as big as previous, but, saying that, they just move better these days, and you've got to be able to keep up with time. So if you can't move fast, you're just not going to get your job done.
And finally, Flano, how much are you enjoying coaching this second time around? I always feel sorry for new coaches when they come in. Like they've got, you've got a limited amount of time to turn a roster around and also win results. How are you enjoying this second stint as a head coach?
It's different, Webby. Obviously, coming into the Dragons. On the back of a fair few years just not having great success. They've win some games here and there, but not consistently. And then coming in last year, obviously the problems around Ben that he was looking to go elsewhere, and then we had Francis Molo and then Zach Lomax. So I've had a fair bit to deal with, in reshaping the roster. But what I am really enjoying is the people we've just spoken about, the Dill Egans, Hamish Stewart, the Couchmans. It's a bit of a change in our roster at the Dragons at the moment, and I'm really enjoying coaching those young boys, like just cutting their teeth in NRL. It's been really enjoyable to watch them play and watch them grow.
Well, 3 from 5, Flano, after 6 rounds. 38-16 winners over the Titans last night. 4 tries in 11 minutes, which was outstanding. And before we let you go and enjoy your weekend, we've got Azza from DUI on the text line, Flano. He says, can you get Flano to say, show me the money?
I'll show you the money when we play semi-finals. I'll
Good
even
stuff.
jump out in the
Yeah.
field and do the sign.
Yeah,
Good
good stuff.
response.
Good stuff. I can see you and Christian Tuipulotu in the first week of the finals when you win, just doing it together. That's
Very good.
outstanding vision.
I'll just do it straight for you too.
Oh, very good.
Hey, Flano, thank you very much for joining us this Saturday morning.
Enjoy your weekend.
Have your say, 1300 01 1170 or send a text 0457 736 736. This is Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the Panthers. Yeah, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff, simulcast live on Fox League and also the SEN Network as well. So let's focus on the game Thursday night. We're going to talk about the result a little bit later on, but probably more focus here on the Penrith Panthers. I don't want to use the word crisis because we're only 6 rounds in. Okay, but there has got to be a reason why the results are playing out the way they are when you're the Penrith Panthers and you've been so successful over the last 4 years, 5 years playing in a grand final in 2020. So that game on the weekend, on Thursday, I should say, 30 points to 12 against the Dolphins. We will focus on that a little bit later on, and I will say the Dolphins were outstanding defensively, really, really good. And many will say it was always going to take a bit of time with the change of coaching, whatever that may be. But I think at the first couple of games, I can give them a pass mark for the first game with the cyclone in southeast Queensland, have to really change a lot of their preparation around that. I can give them a pass on that. But they've just started to warm into looking like the team on paper that I think is one of the most exciting teams on paper, purely on paper. But now they're starting to play, to their ability. Now, in saying that, but the Panthers, if you weren't an educated rugby league fan, and you just watched your first game of rugby league and you were watching the Panthers versus the Dolphins or the Panthers versus the Cowboys the week before, and you said, how do you think this team here in the black, how do you think they've gone over the previous seasons? You would probably say, I don't think they would win too many games, just the way they're playing at the moment, the style of play they're playing. So it's a concern the way they're playing and how they're not coming out with any results for what's worked with them in the past, Webby.
Well, defensively they haven't been great at all, and they look disjointed in attack. I was thinking about this last night, Sats, pondering what this all means for the Penrith Panthers, stroking my chin, sipping a whiskey, having a cigar. We expected them to slow down and come back to the field at some point. That's just how the comp works. That's how the salary cap works, and. After they've been up for so long, 5 grand finals, four premierships in a row, it was inevitable that they were going to come back. I think the thing that has surprised all of us is that it's been so quick and it's happened the way that it has. But if you put your cigar and whiskey down for a second, then you consider the fact that they've lost Luai, Fisher-Harris, Taruva from last year. Before that, Crichton, Burton, Leniu, Kickow, Hopgood, Coruscant, Hosking, and others too. That their junior ranks are also getting depleted, like Katoa, who's gone to the Dolphins. It's only inevitable that was going to happen. And then if you look to this season, they've had, through injury or suspension, Cleary, Edwards, To'o, Kenny, Jack Cole, all missing at various stages in the first few rounds of the competition. They're very un-Panthers-like, and they are nowhere near the standard that they've set for the rest of the competition for a long period of time. But, there are certainly plenty of mitigating factors for the reason for them falling as they have. I know that the Panthers, and Ivan Cleary in particular, won't use as an excuse, but, if any club can turn things around and make a run towards the finals, and it's Penrith. We've seen what they're capable of at the back end of the season. But, as I said, I just think the fall from grace has been a bit quicker than any of us really expected.
So we've got a text on the text line here saying, hi guys, love the show. My name is Nick Pearson. I live in Queensland. I'm 14 years of age. Big fan of the show. Have we finally seen the end of the Penrith dynasty or dynasty? Well, this happens to all great teams at some stage, okay? And and many say this is what the salary cap is about, that we've got to try and even out the competition, got to try and filter out the players that have been dominating at certain clubs to other teams, to bring some of those lesser teams up through the field. But the way I look at the Panthers at the moment is after 5 straight losses, they look jaded. The tack is not as crisp as what we've seen in the past. I feel they're trying to do what they've done in the past when they were successful, trying to do exactly the same things, but they haven't got the same players
in terms of attack
to do it. Yeah, to do it, and even defensively as well. You know, they've been trying to do the same thing. So I think they've got to, because it's so early on in the season. If this was happening in the back end of the season, you would have major concerns. But when you've got one of the best players in the competition in the world right now, and Nathan Cleary in your side, and when he comes back, Brian To'o and co, you've still on paper got a really, really formidable side. So because it's so early on in the season, I think they've got a really, really lucky chance. They're very lucky to revisit their attack. I think in those games against the Cowboys, and especially the Roosters, when they were chasing that lead and playing that expansive style of rugby, I mean, they looked like that Panthers side that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. So by doing what they're doing now and what they've been doing over the last 4 years is not working. I think they've got a really good opportunity to revisit that.
What do you think of not so much the criticism of Nathan, but the calls from people like Joey and others that he needs to simplify his game a little bit? I was talking to Matty Johns from Morning Glory here on SEN yesterday, and he and his son Cooper have got the podcast Backstage, and they had Nathan on last year, and Matty made the observation on that that Nathan, you can tell Nathan is going to be on when he's running the ball early on in the game, in the first few sets, and he hasn't been doing that. Do you think Nathan has to modify his game to, get Penrith going again?
I think Nathan plays his best when he does play real simplified basic rugby league, and I actually think his whole game is built on the basics. He just does them better than most.
Yeah.
At the moment, those around him, there's some around him that don't seem to be on the same page. And again, that comes with just looking jaded, I don't want to use the word fatigue because it's so early on in the season, but I think they need an injection in the forward pack. I think they need something that's young, aggressive, has got great footwork, great agility, to be able to get them on the front foot. They've got a kid that plays in their New South Wales Cup team. His name's Luron Patea. And the best way to explain him is he's a Jason Taumalolo type, sort of Adam Fanua-Blake sort of size. Good footwork, really quick for a big man as well. So Luron Patea, look out for him, because I think an injection of a young forward, a little bit like a Xavier Willison, who's come on the scene at the Brisbane Broncos, and we're seeing what he's like this year. You can just see the maturity in his game. I think if they can get that fresh burst of enthusiasm and youth into their forward pack, it can probably get the Panthers on the front foot a little bit more and allow players like Blaze Taulangi, who started at 6, and I thought he started off really well, but then he tried too hard when they were chasing the game at the end. He came up with mistakes. So I think if they do get that injection, it gives the ability for guys like Nathan to have a little bit more time. But like I said, I'll repeat it. I think because it's so early on in the season, they've got this really good opportunity to revisit their attack. Defence is a completely different beast, but they've got a really good chance this early on in the season.
They didn't miss as many tackles this week as they did against South the week before. But I know, not to trying to say I'm any football expert, but it seemed like Penrith's, the big part of Penrith's play, particularly in that grand final against Melbourne, is that they just keep the ball in play and they just basically wear down the opposition. And they can't do that this year because they keep dropping the ball. Yeah. And that's so un-Penrith-like.
Well, they had 50 tackles in the attacking zone of the Dolphins and came up with a try from a kick. And, again, very uncharacteristic of the Panthers to not be able to execute those opportunities. But of course, it's so early on in the season, they've got the right coach, they've got the right players to rectify it. Let's see how it plays out. Now, in the post-match press conference, Ivan Cleary was asked if he thinks they could salvage this season.
Yeah, of course I can. Why is that? Because I have faith in the boys. I have faith in the team, the club, and yeah, it's obviously a little challenging at the moment. That's probably putting it mildly, but we're just not playing well enough. Certainly not well enough for long enough, and obviously need to turn that around. But once we do, I feel like we can definitely get going. But yeah, it's tough times at the moment.
So 969 says, Elliot from Randwick says, if anyone can make a run from the bottom half of the 8, it's Penrith. No one will want to draw them, that's for sure. And I always think that. I think Ivan realised that maybe getting a minor premiership is probably a bridge a little bit too far with the amount of players that Penrith have lost. But if they make the top 4, 6, if they get a home final in that first week in that 5th or 6th position, they'll have a lot of teams still looking over their shoulder.
They are September and at the first week of October specialists.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, reported on in the last few years and dealt with Ivan particularly. You know, they just go to another level when it comes to finals football. And they time their run. They really focus on it. We all know about the themes, the Top Gun theme, the Mount Everest theme. Like they come up with a real impetus in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks before the finals, and then make a real run at it. And we've heard it before. Like we heard it last year. It was going to be Melbourne's year. The year before that, it was going to be the Broncos, and they just managed to get it done at the pointy end of the season. If they're there, then you know you're a game man or woman if you say they can't win the comp.
You know, you make a good point there. They do time their run really well. They don't panic. The really good clubs over the years don't panic in the first part of the never I knew Wayne Bennett never used to panic too much with those Broncos teams over the years. If they were 2 from 5, he wouldn't panic. He just knew that they'd have the players to come in the back half of the season after Origin, would be able to lift for those really big matches come finals time.
It's such a long year.
Yeah.
You know, it's what you do at the end of the year, not at the start.
Hey, Mark says, don't know what you guys thought. This is on the text line. If you thought Blaise Taulagi was told just to run the ball, don't pass, he had several opportunities to pass on the outside and didn't take it. At Parramatta, he was passing. Yeah, it's a good point. There were a couple of opportunities. He did have a little bit of an overlap and he could have tipped it on, whether that's nerves, whether that's just trying to feel his way into the side as well. He's a new player at a new club. It takes you a while to gel with those players around you until you get on the field.
People are already writing him off. I find that hilarious as well. Like, come on, let's new club, and he's got the face of a 12-year-old. Like he's I know he's been around a little while, but he's got got a lot of footy ahead of him.
Now the Mortlake Tiger up the Tigers, he says on the text line 0457 736 736. Now, if you want to give us a call also, 1300 01 1170 is the number. Morning man Cleary getting shown up for all he is not. No Luai, no Penrith. He was the glue that held them together. Now, Mortlake, I disagree when it comes to Cleary. I still think he's one of the best. At your peril, you could write him off. But I will say this. Luai was the energy of the side. Just from an outside looking in, he looked as though that he was the energy. If Cleary was out, and he was over 3 years in a row, he was out whether it's suspended or injured, and Luai held the team together, and he did hold that energy. That team has been famous for adrenaline-charged wins, and that adrenaline charge seems to not be there, and Luai seemed to be that guy that was the mouthpiece.
I think he had a title. Was it Chief Energy Officer or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, CEO, Chief Energy Officer.
Well,
you're the Chief Energy Officer of this show.
Am I?
You
am
are.
I really? I don't think so.
Come on, fire up.
I don't think so. Hey, thanks for your text. 0457 736 736 is the number. Now, Stat Guru Wally.
Oh, the great Wall.
The great
What's
Wall.
he got for us?
Mad Roosters supporter, isn't he?
He can.
Wall.
He fires off some good stats.
So, Vossi and Brandy. This is on X. He said, this is Breakfast with Vossi and Brandy on SEN. Only 4 of the 197 teams to have had 5-game losing streak at any time in the season in the NRL era, which is 1998 onwards, have finished in the top 4. So I'll say that again. 4 of the 197 teams that have had a 5-game losing streak since 1998.
Who are they?
You tell me. Who do you think?
The Roosters are one.
The Roosters are not one.
South are one.
The South Sydney are not one.
Jeez, I'm going good here.
Brisbane Broncos 06
Yep.
went on to win the comp.
Yep.
So two went on to win the comp. Broncos 06, Storm in 2012.
Close. They're the only two.
They're the only two that have gone on after having a 1 from 5, a 5-game losing streak.
I'm getting South mixed up for in 21 where they won, where they had 2 50-point losses.
Yep.
And then made the grand final.
Say that again.
So they had two 50-point losses.
Yeah.
They had 54 and 50 odd put on them throughout earlier in the season, and then went on to make the grand final.
Okay.
Remember that?
Yeah.
In Bennett's last year.
It was too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
was.
I'm getting mixed up with that. I'm not really a stats guy. or a numbers guy.
Sula says, hey, boys, I love the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wherever you're listening or watching on Fox League or SEN, are you able to give my sister Tiara a shout-out? She's your number one fan. Who's Sula, myself or Webby, or both of us?
Both of us.
Both of us?
Go.
Yeah. Hey, let's get to a break here on Saturday League
Go on, give
kickoff.
her a shout out.
Shout out, Tiara.
Good
to
on you, Tiara.
Yeah,
Thank
hope
you.
you're enjoying your Saturday. And up next, we're going to wrap up the first hour. Also, take your calls, 1300 01 1170, and more of your text messages here on Saturday League Kickoff. Yeah, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler and Andrew Webster, and hope your Saturday and your weekend has started off the best way possible. And if you're watching us through Fox League, welcome, and also to our SEN listeners as well. Now, we've got these listeners on SEN Lundy, and there's Dunny, there's Western Sydney Eagle. They send us text messages during this first hour, and they call it the good guy hour because they feel as though we're not going to read their text messages out because they're a little bit loose, which we like looseness. That's all right. The good guy hour is off to a fly. Go Manly, Western Sydney Eagle says. But Lundy, I've seen, hasn't sent any of his derogatory text messages in yet. He'll wait till the second hour, I think.
That's when things get a bit looser, don't they?
Exactly, they do. But
the witching hour
keep
of
sending them
Saturday League Kickoff.
0457 736 736 is the text line. And if you want to give us a call like Warren on the Sunshine Coast has, he wants to talk about the bunker, 1300 01 1170. How are you, Warren?
Well, boys, yourself?
Going very well, pal. The bunker.
Yes, look, just quickly, boys, the bunker adjudicates on a lot of different weird and wonderful rules. What I noticed last night in the Dragons game, I can't remember exactly which try it was, but anyway, a try was scored. The bunker goes back and has a look, and the player clearly does not make contact with the ball when he plays it, and it goes on, the try is awarded. Just wondering, why would that not have been brought back if his foot clearly was a good 15 centimetres from the ball?
Yeah, so Warren, you make a point here that was brought up throughout the week that I forget who was saying it throughout the week. I think it was Joel Kane on the run home. I think he was saying they should go back to the play the ball, and I apologise if it wasn't Sugar, but if the play the ball is not clean and they score a try, they should go all the way back to the play the ball. Do we want to go all the way back? I mean, we are having complaints, Warren, about the game as being stopped too much as it is.
Yeah, I know, but I actually agree with Warren. Like, I mean, they're pulling. They intervene in like on-field incidents all the time, particularly foul play.
Yep.
I mean, to me, there's an overuse of technology.
Yep.
I don't want technology constantly interfering in the game. But if you're going to use it, then you might as well go back to the play the ball.
Yep. Now,
tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Particularly when the play the ball is so messy anyway.
Yep. Dave from Mandurah says, lads, my family and I are excited for the games in Perth today. Appreciate any games that come to Perth, but would love a team in the WA to follow. We're going to talk about that in the second hour. Dave also says, go the Raiders as well. James is on the Central Coast, and he wants to talk about the West Tigers. How are you, James?
Good, Sats. How are you?
Going very well, pal. The West Tigers, what's on your mind?
Just over the years they've been buying, I think they bought well this year, but they seem to be missing something in the middle there. I don't know. They let some soft tries through, and they get beaten through the years by big margins. And I really don't. I personally find any team that gets knocked off by big margins through the year, they don't seem to end up going towards the end of the finals.
Well,
that's just my opinion.
Well, James, what are your thoughts, Webby? Every team has a really bad night in them throughout a season. Even if they go and win the comp, there's something goes wrong for whatever reason. I still think they can recover and make the finals without a doubt. But the West Tigers, I think they're going to be a lot better this year compared to the previous 3 or 4 years, without a doubt.
100%. You can
just
see
the style of rugby league they're playing at the moment. They're gritty and they're staying in the fight.
I think you can see the difference that Jerome Luai's made already.
Yeah,
for sure. And they're only going to get better as the season goes on. I do think they are walking a bit of a tight rope to make the finals. Back to you, Sats.
Is that it? I think the West Tigers fans, I may be wrong. If the West Tigers finish just outside the 8, just say it's 10th, 11th, 12th, would they be satisfied? As a West Tigers, as a person who likes the West Tigers, I'm a big fan of Shane Richardson as well, a big fan of Benji and some of the players that are there. I think it's a step in the right direction. Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, I think they will too.
Yep.
Go the Tigers.
Absolutely.
I think it'd be good for the game too. If they made the 8.
Absolutely.
Given how the trials and tribulations of that club over the last 10 to 15 years,
and the huge supporter base as well. Now Stormy Daniel away in soon. He's a mad West fan back in the day as well. Loves his Campbelltown. At the start of the show, we said Jacob Kiraz, does he come into calculation with the injury to Zach Lomax if he is out in Origin 1? We've got Az who says if Turbo's fit, could he be on the wing and Latrell and either Bradman or Crichton in the centres? Yes, absolutely. Mark says Joey's big on Jack Bostock for Lomax. Got to say, he's a big target, isn't he, as well? Hey, that's the end of the first hour. To all our Fox League viewers, you can continue to listen on SEN. If you don't have the SEN app, all you have to do is download it wherever you get your apps from. And in the second hour, we are going to talk about the Thursday night game, just the Dolphins in general. There are plenty more topics in the game. The 18th team, what is it going to be? Is the PNG bid, is it going to be pushed out? Is the WA bid, is it off? Is it somewhere else? We're not quite sure. This is Scott Sattler and Andrew Webster for Saturday League Kickoff. Back very soon. Yeah, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff for the second hour. If you missed the first hour, you can get it on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. Of course, Saturday League Kickoff. You just got to look for that on the SEN app as well. If you're just joining the show, welcome. On this Saturday morning, Scott Sattler and also Andrew Webster. And we're going to recap what happened over the first hour. We had Shane Flanagan on. We talked about the Panthers in general, not so much the Thursday night loss to the Dolphins. We're going to get to that very, very soon. Your text messages as well. But the big news that's been dominating, I suppose, this morning, Webby, is out of that Roosters and Broncos game last night, Spencer Leniu's, would you call it a Yeah, you would call it a confrontation with Jonathan Thurston.
That's a confrontation, baby.
Yep, absolutely.
Harsh words were spoken.
And I think one of our listeners made a really good point that some people on our text line, we're going to try and get to as many texts as we can because we do get hundreds of texts each Saturday morning. Some are saying Spencer Leniu, well, he's just got to pull his head in. He's a liability. He's a moron, some people are saying. But you've got to remember, this is a guy that he just plays on adrenaline. So, and it's not making an excuse for him because he has done some idiotic things in the past. But in saying that as well, one of our listeners said, what if he said it to a fan? Or what if he said it to one of the other female journalists who are on the sideline? I suppose the answer to that is he doesn't seem to have a set with any of those people. He seems to have his eyes set on JT because of the comments that JT has said last year through a podcast. You were saying throughout the finals?
Yeah, just on the eve of the finals. But he also said it a couple of days after the judiciary handed down the 8-match suspension. JT said he thought it should have been 12 weeks. The NRL had failed Indigenous players and the Indigenous community by not coming out stronger against Spencer Leniu. Spencer's been pretty active on his Instagram this morning and saying, I don't like fake people. That's what he called Jonathan Thurston. He said it wasn't. He said it's when JT approached him. Now that's conflicts with what Channel 9 people and people who were on the sideline have said to me. That it was unprompted. The first sort of spray that Spencer gave Jonathan Thurston when he was on the sideline for Channel 9 last night. So I suppose that's what the NRL will have to get to the bottom to if they end up investigating what happened there at Suncorp last night.
If it was unprompted, and they've got enough people around that area to confirm whether it was unprompted or not. Now, knowing JT the way I do, he's not a confrontational person.
No.
I couldn't see him saying anything to Spencer Leniu, even if he wasn't working for one of the broadcasters on Friday night. He still wouldn't have done it just as he was there as an onlooker. So he's not a confrontational person where Spencer is, and he's probably, this could have been nipped in the bud a long time ago.
For sure. I don't know why they wouldn't have, if Spencer was aggrieved with what JT said, just pick up the phone and say something to him. On the flip side, if JT could have picked up the phone and talked to Spencer.
Yep.
It's, I don't know if the sidelines at Suncorp Stadium in a huge game last night was probably the best place for all that to play out. So, but such is the drama of rugby league, isn't it?
168 says on the text line 0457 736 736, or if you want to give us a call 1300 01 1170. 168 says, I bet Spencer Leniu wouldn't be game enough to walk past Gordon Tallis and call him an expletive. No, well, some
I
people,
reckon he would.
Some people have tried.
I reckon he would. I don't know if he'd. I don't know who'd come off the. I've got an idea who might come off second best.
I think I know who comes off second best. Pretty easy, actually. Yeah. Morning, boys. How the mighty have fallen. Now, we spoke about the Panthers and their demise in the first 6 rounds. The reason that Port Macquarie Eels says is Serraldo, defensive coach, Webster, attacking coach. These kids weren't in that system. They're not in the spot to take the ball that the players that were left. Their defence pattern is now at the Bulldogs. Ivan needs a complete rethink. Well, there were players there last year that still won without those coaches there. And what Port Macquarie Eels saying that even if they weren't there, the effects are still there.
Yeah, that they weren't in those. They didn't learn under that system. Yeah.
Yep.
I suppose that's the problem.
Yep. So,
well, again, it's not like it's the inevitability of being up for so long.
Exactly. And there were also, over the last couple of days, reports Joey Manu has asked for a release on compassionate grounds from French rugby. Now, when I read this, I thought, no, hang on a sec, I thought he was playing in Japan, which he is. He's playing for Toyota Verblitz, who are second last in their conference. They're third last over both conferences. But he is signed for a French club racing 92. Now, he wants to get out of that on compassionate grounds.
Well, no, he's thinking about asking for a release.
Yeah. So he's just putting it out there that he's thinking about it.
So he's got to think about whether he's going to ask, and then he has to be granted the release. So
that doesn't go across too well, does it?
That's a lot that's got to happen.
Bruce says, hey, guys, love the show. Thank you very much, Bruce. We love you as well. Now, have your say, 0457 736 736. Thursday night, Suncorp Stadium, Dolphins 30 defeated the Panthers 12. SEN League covered this game. I was there myself with Mark Potty-Braybrook and Corey Parker. And, any defeat is bad, but it is a crushing defeat for the Panthers when it's now the last 5 games. Tommy Gilbert, he returned from suspension, and Dylan Edwards was back on deck with back from a groin injury, I should say. Back at the back end of the game when they were chasing, he was really good, Dylan. I thought at the early part of the game that maybe the groin was troubling him, but I'm led to believe that he actually possibly could have played the week before. So they held him out that extra week. So Blaise Taulangi, like we said earlier on, started for the first time in the halves as well. So the highlight, of course, was the Hammer hat-trick. And many were saying early on in the season, maybe they should have a reshuffle. Maybe Averillo goes the fullback and Hammer into the centres, because you're thinking the Hammer's going to play centres at Origin level.
Yeah.
But if I'm at NRL level, I've got Hammer at fullback every day of the week. In the last 2 weeks, he's proven that.
Absolutely. You want to give him a player like that space. And the way that he combined with his outside backs on either side of the field, it was, that's when the fins are up. He was in. There's no better side in rugby league than the Hammer at full pace.
Especially when and a couple of their tries the other night were scored from long distance, like inside their own half.
And he was on the end of them.
Yeah, so Farnworth breaks through, or Averillo breaks through, and then you can see that speed is looming up on the inside. And on 2 occasions, that's what happened. I've got to say, Jake Averillo, unbelievable. He got our SEN League Tempo player of the match. He was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I know Bennett couldn't believe that he could get him.
I couldn't believe, and it flew under the radar as well.
That's right.
An outstanding player, and he was really, really good.
What do we think of Katoa? I thought he's just starting to come into his own, Isaiah Katoa.
Always remember watching him he was at Barker College on a rugby scholarship, and I remember watching some footage of him in rugby, and I thought, this kid doesn't look like he should be playing like rugby. It's before I knew who he was and that he was a Penrith junior. But I think he played a couple of games of SG ball, never played Jersey Flag, never played New South Wales Cup. But then all of a sudden, while he's still at school as a 17-year-old, he's on a Zoom call with Wayne Bennett. And he actually said himself, he said, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was a cardboard cutout of Wayne on the other end. But he knew that he was going to be behind Jerome Luai and Nathan Cleary. He knew that his road to first grade was going to be really, really tough. He was going to be a fill-in at times, maybe come off the bench, which wasn't a bad thing for a young player to be introduced into the NRL. But the kids today, they want to be there now. They want to be there yesterday. And I thought it was a really smart and mature move for him to go up there and be given the keys to the side. So what convinced him was that Wayne apparently said to his family, I'll protect him. You won't have a worry. You won't have to move up here. You won't have to do all that sort of stuff. If you need to, you have to, by all means, but I'll protect him. And that's what convinced his family above all the other clubs, Webby. It's pretty important, isn't it?
Just quickly, I've been to press conferences where I think it's a Wayne Bennett cardboard cutout because that's about all he has to say. We were talking to a legendary former player just before we came on air today. Let's just say he's an immortal and a bit of a lunatic. But he made a very good. His point was Katoa plays direct.
Yep.
Direct football. That's the way that. That's the way that he plays.
He's got this amazing tempo.
That's what you need.
The really good halves, what they call fast to slow, slow to fast. What that means, is that when you grab the ball at speed, you've got the ability to slow up and bring the defensive line to you. And in the opposite is you catch the ball at half pace and then you accelerate into the line and drag the defence to you as well. He does it, I think, better than most in the competition. It's his ability at such a young age to dominate that position is pretty impressive. Now, their coach, he is a good coach. He's had great success in the UK Super League with St Helens, Christian Wolf, and he is starting to find his way through this crazy maze that is called the NRL, and this is what he had to say post-match.
Yeah, look, really proud of our effort. We put ourselves under a bit more pressure than what we needed to at different times, but our defence tonight was outstanding. We had a real grit about us, a real work ethic about us. We weren't going to give them anything cheaply, so it was great to see.
Yeah, he's a man of very few words, Christian Wolf, but a really good coach. And, he's always going to have that looming shadow over the top of him, but he's a tough man. Away from rugby league, he's a tough man. He's faced tougher situations in life outside of rugby league that'll get him through this, Webby.
Absolutely.
Have you had much to do with him yet?
I actually haven't at all, but God, from what I've seen so far, he holds himself. He looks like a man's man. He seems like a really strong coach, cut from the same block as his predecessor, Wayne Bennett. Not easy, as we know, to follow in the Bradman of rugby league when you're a coach. I just think we're so quick to condemn in this game. You know what I mean? We've condemned and said that that the Christian Wolf isn't going to be up to standard. I remember Katoa. There was doubts about Katoa a couple of years ago. It's just a young halfback. You need patience. I think that's getting harder and harder for clubs to have in the modern game.
Yep.
We just want to get rid of coaches, get rid of halves, and burn through them. We wonder why there's a lack of both. So I'm happy to see Redcliffe starting to string some wins together.
He's a really good man. He's born in a tough town called Mount Isa, which is North Queensland. Both he and his brother Benny, who's an assistant coach at the Dolphins as well. They're a good family. They're good men. They're very good coaches. I've got no doubt that they'll have success under Christian Wolf. Thank you very much for all your texts throughout the show. I'm struggling to understand how Spencer and JT haven't run across each other up until now. The Roosters are often on free-to-air, so I'd imagine they would have crossed paths, Josh says. Yeah, maybe, but
that's a good point.
It's all about the moments, isn't it? It's all about the moments. It has to be the right moment.
Right.
The right moment. Hey, let's get to a break here on Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler and Andrew Webster with you, like we are each and every other Saturday. And on the other side of the break, we're going to discuss the latest on what's happening with the possible 18th NRL team. Welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster, proudly brought to you by Wing House, the best seats and beers always guaranteed. Now, we are going to talk about the 18th team, but before we do that, our text line 0457 736 736. And if you want to give us a call, 1300 01 1170. Now, before we get to Rob, we've got a text here from 132 says, it's funny as Panthers watch, as a Panthers fan, I watched Spencer Leniu last night and think that's what we are missing. You need players that push the limits. Probably not off the field, but on the field, definitely. He was outstanding, Spencer, last night.
Yeah, that's sort of the problem of what's happened with Jonathan Thurston. We've overlooked just how
good he is.
Yeah, when he's pumped up.
No hit zone. Short to the ground, fast. You can't really get a really good shot on them defensively.
No, he always seems to break the first tackle, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Rob from Marsden is on the line, 1300 01 1170. How are you, Rob?
Morning, boys. Really good. It's always a good day to wake up breathing. Yeah, I'm going to talk about Spencer. I think timing is the probably the biggest thing there. I applaud the guy for having wanting to have a face to face, but probably the timing of the the situation, probably could have thought about it a little bit better.
Yeah, you're probably right. But when you're probably, Rob, when you're adrenaline charged and you're just coming from the field and you're in that that confrontational situation, and you see someone who you class as possibly a mortal enemy, you're going to zero in on them, aren't you? And that's not ideal for Spencer. He's got to try and contain that, but it's probably not ideal for the Roosters that he's doing it during the game as well.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, timing and everything like that is probably the best thing. You could probably go away and walk away and think about. Just the timing of when he wants to talk to someone. And like Webby said before, I think maybe just pick up the phone if you really have a serious issue with a bloke who's commented on your on some of the situations that you've got into. Just give them a call and iron it out that way. Probably too, when you look at the social media posts, you guys have probably seen it. A lot of people talk about, maybe JT's been a lot quiet about Ezra and with Ezra's troubles, and hasn't said anything about that. So I can see a lot of frustration there.
You're right, Rob. Like, as I understand it, that was actually raised by Spencer Leniu and Trent Robinson when they confronted Jonathan Thurston in the sheds or in the tunnel there at Suncorp last night. So you're on the money.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Appreciate the call. Make sure you give us a call next week as well. And there has been a few of our listeners as well and the viewers on Fox League that have texted in as well. McHugh's one of them, is saying that what Ezra did in Vegas is wrong, but there was also a lot of people from some quarters that didn't stand up and criticise Ezra. Many would think that what Ezra got involved in himself in at the end of last year was far worse than Leniu's actions in Vegas.
That's right. I know it's hard. Like, JT is an Indigenous player, and that's why he was asked about these. What happened with Ezra Mam and Spencer Leniu in Vegas. As we said earlier in the show, I'm not excusing what Spencer said whatsoever, but he did try to apologise. There was contrition there from him as well. So, it's a very unfortunate and very, very messy, and it's also a very complex situation. As I said earlier, I covered a lot of that. I was in Vegas when I covered the fallout between Ezra Mam and Spencer Leniu, and then also just the fallout for the next few days that happened, and then the judiciary, which was very, very, again, complex.
You were saying in the judiciary, you were sitting there with some of the other journalists like Brent Reed and co., and you were looking at the interactions with Spencer, and you genuinely believe that he is totally oblivious to
that he'd made a racist comment.
Yeah,
it was that was the thing that came out of it. The judiciary in the end. And Jeff Bellew, who I respect enormously, who's the chair.
He got me off a couple of times, Jeff Bellew, back in the day.
Oh, he was like the Perry Mason of the NRL judiciary. He was one of the greats, and now he's the. I always think this is a bit of an aside, but when I think of Jeff Bellew, he went from jailing Roger Rogerson, a former, a corrupt copper,
murdering corrupt copper.
Yeah, that's right, and then. And then raced from the courtroom to chair a judiciary hearing at NRL Central. That says everything about rugby league, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But he said in his after that case that he said that there was that they didn't accept that Spencer Leniu had didn't know that what he said was racist, and I actually don't agree. Having sat there, he just looked so confused, Spencer, about what he'd done and whether it was the wrong thing or not.
Yep. Hey, let's get on to the topic around the ARLC, who are planning to have crisis talks with the WA government about this expansion team. Now, they've failed to call the PNG bid the 18th team. They've just said they're coming into the comp 2028. And I think they may have done that because there's a chance, does the PNG bid get pushed backwards a little bit? There's obviously an election going on at present.
I think they said 28 because they thought that, they declared, I remember going to that press conference too. That's all I seem to do, go to bloody press conferences. When James Marape and the PNG PM and Anthony Albanese, the the Australian PM at the moment, fronted a press conference in Sydney in December and announced the PNG bid had been successful and was going to come into the competition in 2028. And Peter V'landys stood there on the steps of Government House in the city there and said, "We are going to we hope to have the Western Bears done in 2 to 3 weeks." And that never happened.
That looks like it's gone a little bit pear-shaped.
I've written about this in my column in the Australian today. It's look, I know it's very difficult to be critical of Peter V'landys, but I think he has really stuffed this up. He has his strong arm tactics with Roger Cook, the WA Premier, have not gone down well over there. He reached out to Roger Cook this week to try and soothe the tensions between the government. I know he said elsewhere today that there's no drama between those between himself and Roger Cook. Government sources in Western Australia will tell you otherwise, and I don't think Roger Cook appreciated being bullied by V'landys into coughing up $320 million of taxpayer money in the West to make this happen. I think it'll happen, Sats.
Yep.
But I don't think it's going to happen as quickly as the NRL hopes, and I don't think it's going to happen for the money that they're desperately trying to get.
Has the Roger Cook, the WA Premier, do you think he's getting a lot of pushback from the AFL?
Oh, I'd say this is the conspiracy theory that's been floated by the NRL to cover up the fact that they've stuffed up their own negotiations with him. I think that's rubbish. As I've written today, the AFL actually think they don't really care. They've got two of the strongest clubs financially in the league and in terms of the West Coast Eagles in the country. It's an AFL stronghold. They're more worried about, and we said this last week, they are more worried about a team, about rugby league's influence in the west, in the western suburbs of Brisbane, than they are about a team in Perth.
Yeah. I saw you during the week with Buzz. You were quite strong on that. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I've been waxing lyrical about it for a while. I don't think a team in WA is. I think we need one at some stage. Is it the right time at the moment? I'm not quite sure. Braden, who is a mad Titans fan, has texted in. He wants to see a team in Perth, and also Shane. He's listening in Perth as well. Thurston and Spencer had a few words. Who cares? Everyone I know couldn't care less about it. I'm only interested in the games on today, and they are big games. Of course, a double header in Perth. I can't wait to see that as well. It should be outstanding. So it's going to be interesting how this all plays out with the PNG and also the WA bids as well. So sometimes to get power, you've got to take a little bit of power off them. And I think that's what probably PVL's trying to do at the moment, take a little bit of power off them to try and come back and make them realise that they need rugby league in their city. I don't know whether they do or not.
That's the problem.
I don't know whether
I don't think those tactics work. They work on the East Coast, but they don't necessarily appreciate it on the West.
Exactly. Morning, boys. Great win by the Chooks, but I've been saying it since all year. The Broncos are overrated. Not a hope of winning the comp, Marty says. I think they're in it with every chance. Every chance. Hey, let's get to the news, and on the other side, we're going to talk about today's games. Yeah, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff, and let's get a look into the Saturday games today. And I am very excited about these games at Optus Stadium in Perth. And before we get to that, the text line 0457 736 736. Trying to get to as many of these as possible. And we thank you for all your interaction throughout the show, whether you're watching us on Fox League or listening to us on the SEN network as well. If we don't read it out, don't stop. Continue to get your texts through because each and every week, because we will eventually get to the ones, whatever the topics we're talking about. Since living here, I've found that Western Australia Australians are very well balanced. They have a chip on their shoulders, don't upset them, and they are very, very parochial. They cannot be told, certainly not by an East Coaster. That's
100% as it's been explained to me by people in the West. You know, they're not going to be bullied into doing what they don't want to do, or whether they do want to do it. But particularly when you're asking for $320 million of taxpayer money, and and it got brought up in the middle of a WA election after the WA government said to the NRL, "We're not going to talk about it." During the election, and then a story appeared on February 12 with Peter V'landys quoted in it, and they hit the roof. And that's what stalled it. Don't worry about the AFL getting involved or Kerry Stokes. Believe me, that is what has annoyed Roger Cook and the WA government.
So based on taxpayers' money, we look at that PNG bid, which is $600 million from the Australian government. Again, cost of living, and I know it's bipartisan. If Dutton gets in, that'll be business as usual. But
that's what they say now.
Things have changed.
That's right, but it's a real issue. Like now's not the time to be asking for new stadiums.
Yeah,
Even down in Tasmania, the AFL are asking for $1.2 billion for a 23,000 seat stadium with a roof. And the Tasmanian government is going, I don't know about this, and the AFL are holding them to ransom, saying, well, if you don't build it, you're not getting, the license that we said you would. So it was contingent on that. But you're right. It's at the moment now is not the time for major sports,
especially with an Olympics in 2032.
Well, this is the thing too. That's $7.5 billion of state and federal funding. So, if sports have to tread a bit carefully when they're asking for billions of dollars.
That's nearly as much as you spend on your dog, Stevie Nicks. Nearly as much.
That's how much he costs. That's how much a Sydney vet costs.
Now Lundy, he's weighed in. He knows he doesn't feel comfortable in the first hour. He thinks that we don't acknowledge him enough. Okay. Now, so Lundy is this loose listener. Okay.
Have you ever met Lundy?
No, but myself and Rat, we found him.
What do you mean?
We conducted investigations and we found him, and we come to a conclusion that before we saw the picture of Lundy, we thought he'd be a truck driver, loves his rum, probably has a blue catalogue sitting on the passenger seat while he's driving a road haul across Australia.
Oh, I like all the stereotypes you're setting here.
He's this pasty-looking guy that he looks like maybe an accountant, possibly a stockbroker, who's got like a cavoodle. And we think he only sends in these texts when his wife's at work.
Oh,
this is his
very
escape.
Good.
So he said, so you got off a few times with him, did you, Sats? Sounds good. But who's your lawyer? Talking about Jeff Bellew. But he says, Leniu is a liability. Roosters won't like that behind closed doors. Seriously, it's a lack of common sense. So he tries to be serious, and then he can't help himself, Lundy.
Very funny.
But I've got to say, behind closed doors, they would be a little bit concerned.
They didn't seem it when I spoke to all concerned at the Roosters today.
You don't think so?
No, I think they fell behind him in support. I don't know.
Which you'd expect.
Which you'd expect.
But I think the meetings behind closed doors were, hey guys, we want this adrenaline charged human being to be off tilt for 80 minutes during the game. But I couldn't believe after Vegas that the Roosters communications team allowed a reporter, like a journo, TV interviewer, get to him directly after the game and ask him about the incident. Like, he should have been shut down straight away.
Yeah, it was. And that, as we said earlier, it's kicked on all the way for weeks after that event in Vegas, and then it's fired up again now. So you could tell that there's bad blood between the two teams, and you could tell from the moment Spencer Leniu flew in on Katoni Staggs and he got cautioned over that. Do you remember that incident?
He did too, yeah.
Do you agree with that? If he's on the ground with the ball, he's fair game, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like the Reed Marnie thing, where I
was okay with the Reed.
I was okay with the Reed Marnie thing
footy.
as well.
That's footy.
Yeah,
it wasn't too savage.
Many have said when they're on the ground, all you need to do is put your hand on them, because that's classed as a tackle. But we know that's not going to happen in a game.
That's not the game.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to roll here now, because I hate voluntary tackles. Don't you reckon?
Well, it's illegal.
It
used to be a penalty once upon a time.
Exactly, but if you're going to just jump on the ground without anyone tackling you, I remember Sam Burgess did it in a game, years ago, and everyone was up in arms about it. It's like, hang on, that's the game.
Yeah, exactly.
There must be old footballers, particularly really old ones like yourself, who must just look at that stuff and laugh and go, geez.
Remember little Chris Sando once? Remember Chrissy Sando? Fullback came back and he just put this massive shoulder charge on. As the play hit the ground, he just launched from standing position and just shoulder straight into his back. And it's not ideal if the player comes out injured, but it's what the game's all about, and it's never going to change long after we're in pine boxes. Now, Steve,
that's what the game is: cheap shots.
Exactly. Steve in Perth says, "Legends, we're going to the double header today. Family Rabbitohs supporters, but my boys and me will be wearing Western Reds jerseys as a protest to the NRL. Don't protest yet, Steve. It's still on the cards. Now let's get into those games. And today at 3 p.m. That's Eastern time. Optus Stadium, the first game on a Saturday. Sharks up against the Seagulls. Both teams beaten last week. Of course, the Seagulls absolutely bashed by the Storm on home turf last week. And the Sharkies, well, they're trying to turn around a win after back-to-back losses as well. What'd you make of that Seagulls team last week? I've always felt that Melbourne are one of those teams, you know in the first 10 minutes what you got.
That's right.
Whether they're on or off. And you could tell in the first 5 or 10 minutes they were on last week at Brookie.
They were. And they had a point. They had a point to prove too.
Yeah.
You know, after what happened against the Dragons. Good to see Tommy Talau back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. It's a funny game. I find both these teams, for me, are very similar in the sense they're rocks or diamonds. You don't know what you're going to get.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't know whether they're going to make the 4 or whether they're going to not make the 8. It's an interesting matchup between the two of them. I just still think the Sharks have got enough class there. But if the Seagulls are in a mood, they've got plenty of strike. They're still without Tommy Turbo, which is always going to make it hard for them.
Yeah, exactly. I look at some of the matchups, and you look at Britton Nikora and Hamali Olakawati. They play opposite sides of the field, completely different when it comes to their builds as well. But this will be that'll be one of the matchups in relation to the effect that they're going to have on the game. I'm like you. I can't split them. I look at the forward pack, and I think the Cronulla forward pack is far more mobile, quicker across the field. And you would think, if given the opportunity with all that space and all that domination through the middle, that Nico and Braden Trindle will have a lot more time on their hands. But it's not the way that it's been happening for the Sharkies.
Their attack is very hot and cold, isn't it?
Craig Fitzgibbon, if he had hair, he would have lost it anyway after coaching Cronulla, because although making finals while he's there and making top 4s, it must be so frustrating coaching this team.
Absolutely. Are we buying into the Cherry Evans drama affecting Manly?
I heard your mate Buzz
What did Buzz
picked the
have to say?
low-hanging fruit
What did
last
he
week.
say?
He's saying,
he does like
I'm
low-hanging
hearing that the Daily Cherry Evans is, and it's easy to say that after you've been flogged by 40.
Buzz would know.
Would he know?
Just ask him.
I don't. Now listen, I know. I've spoken to people that are very close to this scenario at Manly, and there are some players that are very confused. And you've got a player that's confused and not knowing what's happening on because of whether it's lack of information. That may be a young player that doesn't have the same communication lines with the experienced players, and they're feeling like they're sort of caught in the middle of it all. It can have an effect on your game. It's easy to say as a young player, just forget about it and get on playing with your game. But when there's so much going on around you, there's more media at training for some reason. You've got your captain and your leader and his attention being diverted elsewhere. It can become unnerving and unsettling. Would there be some players that are pissed off? Absolutely. Absolutely. I just put myself in the same situation all the time. If I was at Penrith and Craig Gower, who spent his whole career there and was an integral force in that side, decided that for whatever reason he's just not going to play anymore, absolutely, I'd be really disappointed. I'd actually confront him about it and ask why. But Gowie would have told us anyway. He would have told us this is the decision, and I'm led to believe that Daly had that conversation with some of the more experienced senior players as well about what his decision was going to be about. But it's uncomfortable for players who are not involved in a lot of those conversations.
I think that it's been really weird too for Manly players in particular. There's been so much speculation about who they're going to go after now.
Yeah.
There's it happens almost daily.
Well,
that a player gets linked to going to
Brookvale. Are they the new Roosters, are they?
Well, that's the thing. But I will say this, and it's easy to blame the media for stirring this type of speculation up, and in many cases it's true, but there's a hell of a lot coming out of that club about who they're going to go after.
Yeah.
So, we still don't know what's going to happen with Fogarty, whether that's going to be announced soon, but it seems like it's a fait accompli, doesn't it?
Well, they've got to tell him by round 6, which is today, and they're in Perth. They're in Perth, aren't they? No, they're not. No, sorry, they're playing the Eels tonight. So they've got to tell him by the conclusion of round 6. If they don't, it means he's not taking up the option. Now, the rumours are he's going to go there for $1.2 million to Manly for 2 years. Ricky's saying, I'd love to stay for 1. We can't promise you 2. Got Ethan Sanders. It's the decisions you have to make as a club. You've got a halfback that is very popular, is a captain, but also on the back end of his career. And if you keep him there, you'll lose a young player that you've invested some time in and some money into to be the succession plan in Ethan Sanders. So it's a tough decisions that clubs have to make.
Hopefully it gets announced just before the game.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so all the games today, 2 games in Perth. So who wins that first one, Webby? Sharks and Seagulls.
I've got the Sharks just.
So do I. Rabbitohs versus Cowboys. Well done to the Western Australians that they get the ability to see a really fit, firing Latrell Mitchell in a 6 jersey on their shores. Rabbitohs versus Cows. Rabbitohs chasing 3rd consecutive win. Who you got here?
I reckon the Cows will get them.
Really?
Yeah, I think Souths
on the back
have
of
been
why?
up.
Why?
I just think
What convinces you?
I just think they're playing good footy.
They
the
are
Cows,
playing
you
good.
know?
Yeah.
The bookmakers think so. They're the favourites.
Yeah, that
in
surprises
game,
me.
yeah.
Jackson Purdue, outstanding. And also the last game is in Darwin. Eels, this is a home game. They take those games to Darwin. It's where Brad Arthur used to drink about 14 litres of water. Remember, he used to have all those bottles of water in front of him.
That's
By
right.
the end of the game, they were all empty. Yeah. So this is the last year the Eels are going to Darwin for more reports. 7:35 Eastern Standard Time, I should say. Zach Lomax missed 6 weeks, as we know. Raiders named the same 17. Do the Raiders get them?
Yes.
I think they will as well. Hey, let's get to a break here on Saturday League Kickoff. Thanks to Winghouse, the best seats and the beers, always guaranteed. And when it comes to matchups over the weekend, Lordy on the text line says, "Hi guys, I love the Jaden Sewer up against David Fafita last night." Yeah, I did too, Lordy.
Cracker.
Thank you very much for your text. Let's get to a break. Yeah, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. Scotty Sattler and the designer stubble, that is Andrew Webster, joins me each and every Saturday.
You need to cover up the 2-3 chins.
I like how you do design it. Like it's a nice design. I like it. And we've
Well,
actually had to
it's
change.
usually a bit longer.
We've actually had to change our
I'm
microphone.
just saying on the coverage here, like I'm very sunburned on my head.
Well, so we had to
It's
change our
gleaming.
microphones on the lapel here into our ear because of your designer stubble.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because my chin was rubbing on the microphone.
A second team in the South Island of New Zealand can develop local rugby league players, and with the NRL expanding salary cap, can probably poach some top-line rugby players as well, 871. Yeah, you're right. And the great Simon Mannering, he lives in the South Island as well. And I know the Warriors don't want another team there, and he's a proud Warriors man. But I think a second team in the South Island would be sensational.
I love it. I think that's fish where the fish are.
Yep. New stadium in Christchurch as well. Exactly. Well done. What do they call that? A good
What?
What when it's an example of something? It's a
Example?
Example. It's a whatever.
Gee,
1300
it's been a very busy couple of hours.
Analogy.
Analogy. It's a good analogy.
1300 01 1170. All the way over on the other side of the country in Perth is Matty, who's joined us on the show. How are you, Matt?
Don't you dare call me Matty. Jeez, mate. It's Paramat. No,
Oh, it's Paramat.
No one gets away with calling me Matt. No,
Paramat.
Matty.
Paramat.
Yeah,
We like
Matt.
How you going, Paramat?
Matt or Paramat. Yeah, settle down. I was going to throw you a. I thought it was an easy question, but after that last little diatribe, I thought, I don't know. You know what time it is? You know what time it is in Perth right now?
It's is it 2:51? No.
That would be Auckland, mate.
Oh yeah,
No, it's 9:51. 9:51.
Yeah.
Thank you, Webby.
Gee, bro, we're
Webby's
on
the ball.
what time zone are you in? Oh,
2 hours behind. Last week we were 3 hours behind. Now there is a perfect example of how the East Coast think of the West Coast.
That's
They
exactly
forget
right.
about us. And you know, as Roger Cook has eloquently said, better than me, do not ignore the West Coast and don't treat us like a cash cow or assume that we will just toe the line because. I mean, I'm a blow-in, and I'll happily admit I'm a blow-in. I'm only here for a short time, really, but working here, I have found that the West Australians are so parochial. They love West Australia. They love Australia, but bring an East Coaster in with an attitude of an East Coaster, and they are very quickly cut down to size. So, there is definitely a very strong subculture of rugby league here. I met a girl the other day at a food outlet store who was the captain of the Rockingham Sharks rugby league team.
Yep.
Her dad was the coach. They were thinking about going to Las Vegas this year, but they're definitely going next year. They are passionate South Sydney supporters. They'll be going to the doubleheader this weekend.
Beautiful.
So there is definitely room for a team here. Doesn't matter what sport it is, and if it's not rugby league, that would be a tragedy.
Yeah.
There is definitely going to be an appetite for them. We've been waiting for the Western Reds to resurface, but it doesn't matter what colour the jerseys are. They're bears, they're koalas, they're quokkas. It doesn't matter. There will be a strong following here, I can guarantee it.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we're going to see how that plays out anyway.
So apparently they're going to get a crowd of about 30,000 there.
That's great
today. But I've been told by my guy that's over there who says that because of the way the NRL have tried to bully them into funding this franchise, that it may have cost up to 10K in terms of fans, 10,000 people. So everyone's pretty unhappy over there with how the NRL have been carrying on.
Okay, Storm versus Warriors, Amy Park tomorrow. Same 17. I think the Storm too good for the Warriors the way they played last week.
Yeah, I think so. Down there, Sunday afternoon at Amy Park, they're going to be pretty hard to beat.
And not long to go till the end of Saturday League kickoff. And before we do that, Knights versus West Tigers is 4 o'clock, 4:05, McDonald Jones Stadium. Knights. I don't know.
I don't know with that one either. That's a flick of the coin.
Exactly. Hey, I want to say thank you to all the listeners, all your text messages. We're going to get to a lot of those also in Crunch Time, which is coming up next. And also thank you to Shane Flanagan, also to our callers as well. It's been a big 2 hours. A lot has happened over the last 24 to 48 hours in the world of rugby league. But stick around because we've got Crunch Time coming up next. And then the SEN League team will take over coverage to cover that first game, which is the Sharks versus Seagulls at Optus Stadium.